Hello, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to the Friday show. It's Friday, so I'm drinking a Mexican Coke to honor the day. I'm alone, which is rare. I have got the house to myself. So, hey, what's going on? Except for the dogs, of course. But
as one walks into the frame.
I know, as one walks into the frame. But except for the dogs, I am by myself. So yes, my son is with my wife today, which is really good. And here we go. So let's get started. Russ, what do you got going on today?
So let's talk a little baseball. It's been a few days. The lockout's still there. They had a 15-minute session the other day. Now, I'm with Kevin Allen. The time of the sessions don't matter to me because, honestly, if you're giving a response to somebody else's response, you can have it all. It's a cough, Mike. I have a dog that coughs. It's coughing. So anyhow, you could give a response to anybody else's response, and that would literally take 5 minutes. And so if they just say, hey, thanks for that, and they're not going to hash out things that minute, I don't necessarily get mad. What I get mad at is just not hearing much progress, and there really isn't much progress. And the thing that kind of gets me, I'm going to work on my internet here. Well,
no problem.
Skip the beat there. The thing that kind of gets me is there's definitely a split of people out there, some that support the owners, some that support the players. I'm kind of like in the middle where I'm mad at both because I see the shortcomings of both, and that seems to be in the minority because I think it's easier to just go with the players. They're on Twitter, they all have their blank faces, they tweet responses, and everybody's like, yeah, that's great. Meanwhile, when nobody is in spring training except for the minor leaguers who have to pay their own way, they're the guys that really need the support. They're the ones that need the housing. They're the ones that need all of this stuff. And the longer that this takes, the less of a chance that they have of getting that. And so
they don't give an F about those guys.
Yeah, I mean, they should, but they probably don't.
They were them 5 or 6 years ago.
I did hear a stat. Wayne Fish was telling me a stat, and I forgot where he got it from, but something like 60% of baseball players are worth like $100 million. It's something like that, where they've made that much wealth. It's not like you have that money in cash, but you've made that much. And that is part of the problem of the sport because you have the haves and have-nots, the rich teams and the nots. I'm one of the rich teams, obviously, but I wasn't that way in 1968 when I really started watching. That wasn't necessarily the case, but it's turned into that. And so I get it if you're a fan of the Royals and you've had money a couple times and that's it. And then there's also the players, the haves and the have-nots. And actually there's very few young players now that could sort of live out the dream and afford to be in the minors for more than a couple of seasons. There are guys that used to be in the minors 8 years. Remember, you used to hear these stories. Yeah. Minors 8 years. He finally makes it up. Remember Chris Coast from the Phillies?
Yeah.
He was in the minors for like 8-9 years, and he made it. Nobody can do that anymore. Nobody could afford it because you have to get a real job because the world's too expensive. And that's the part that really gets me about baseball is even if when they do correct this, and they will at some point, and maybe it'll take till June, maybe it'll be next week, but they'll never correct that part. That's what always bugs me.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. It's amazing, like the minor league sports has always been kind of a fascinating thing that way in general. Minor league hockey for years was, I remember talking to people about, the AHL players had to get jobs in the off season and stuff like that. It was just, it's not like
NHL players used to have to.
Right. Yeah. At least they have a union act. The
now they do. Yeah.
And they've done good things for the players. These minor leaguers, they don't even have that.
Yeah. For example, I know that, like America, since I do Cap Central for Hockey Buzz, most of the minor leaguers on their ELCs or even on their second contracts make less than $100,000 US. So like in a city like Toronto, where that's like minimum wage, 2 or 3 of these guys have to live together in the same place because they just simply can't afford the rent for places. But I'll just say this, Russ, and I heard Jeff Passan from ESPN talking about this yesterday. Everything sounds good. Everything will be great. All solidarity will be together, kumbaya until March 31st when the first paycheck misses, and then it'll be blood sport. They'll be after they'll be after each other like crazy. So
it's always ironic because like following having been like kind of like born out of the first big lockout and all that stuff here, I definitely learned a lot about the idea of backing the players or the owners, and how that goes back, how that does go back and forth. And that is a situation where at the end of the day, you really have to blame them both for just not figuring it out. Like it's really, like I've said before, it's obvious.
It's like any other business. Like most of the time you're working for somebody. Like
you're always working for somebody.
Like Mike's overlord is Eck, as an example. And everybody has one. And
that's not true. No, Mike and I work for the readers of Hockey Buzz. I mean, that's what we do. And it's like
no, but everybody has a boss, right?
We do.
And usually in a business, if you're working and you're one of like 25 employees, let's say in like a big corporation or a medium corporation, that guy usually lives in a mansion and he is going to just give you so much in a raise. I know, so much in a raise. And so
this is the Dave and
Buster's. Always going to be that division between players and owners. And I always say, look, the players could start a league anytime they want, but they can't.
They don't want it. That's what they want to do because they don't. No one wants that. Like no one. It's being the boss and running the whole thing and being personally. Like, I remember talking to the owners about this stuff. Like at the end of the day, it falls back on the owners. I mean, during the pandemic, it fell back on the owners. I mean, that the reality is like that's no one cared. The players, they had to play hockey. The players had to get paid. The owners weren't making any money. If it falls back on the owners at the end of the day, it really does. And a lot of those guys have a lot of money. Yes, it's true, but they're not, they're not philanthropists to rich hockey players.
Right.
And the reality is you see it go back and forth all the time, and you'll follow it more and more. And it is frustrating. You will run into people on both sides. Like I try to find, that like the people who are really were trying to find a bridge, because there are bridges and there's plenty. At the end of the day, they're going to have to. And the crazy thing about it is, to me, like right now, the whole thing in baseball is like hockey is being driven by like the really big money players, who want, and they're the ones who are driving it. And they're also the ones who are going to complain the most when they don't get paid for their first paycheck. So it really, they are, the other guys know that, and they're in the middle. They're like, eventually.
That's why I said the minor leaguers, it'd be better if they had their own union rather than being stuck in the major league union, because, their voice in that union is almost nil.
Yeah, but not just the minor league players, like a lot of the like regular major league players who aren't making,
right, the guys who just scrape by.
Yeah, I mean everyone's making good money, but the guys who are going to miss, if people are going to miss a whole year who are making $100 million in that year or whatever in baseball, like it is, I don't know how much the highest paid baseball player makes per year, but
I would say it's about 40 now, Mike.
Okay,
what's
so
that? About 40 million a year for the highest paid baseball player.
43 million, I think, for Scherzer.
Yeah.
So how many guys are over 10 million in baseball per year? You think?
That's a lot.
It's a lot, right? So anybody who's missing is no one's willing to stick on their principles to lose $10 million.
Right. If you're a backup catcher, you might be in the league for 3 years, and you might be making $1 million or $1.5 million or something a year, and then that's got to last you the rest of your life.
Right, that has the rest of your life. That's not a lot of money to last the rest of your life. So, especially when you're like 22 or 23 years old, if you plan on living long. So yeah, there you have it. But let's get going. That's really interesting. We'll see how this is. All right, today's the 18th. Hello, hockey. I'll try this again. Hello, hockey world. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's Friday, February 18th, 2022.
I'm Michael Lagello.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology. Love
and I'm Eklund. Then you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I want to start with that glorious game I watched last night.
Here we go.
Between the Washington Capitals and the Philadelphia Flyers, which really feels it was the epitome. You guys, you're at the games. Russ, you didn't get a chance. I don't know, Mike, if you were watching, I know. Did you get to hear Al Morganti in between the periods and stuff like that?
I didn't.
All right. I know you didn't. I did. So, Al is going through an emotional roller coaster right now. It's very funny. He's a really level-headed guy and really good guy, but he also is like, he knows what he's talking about. First of all, he's very good. Secondly, he does go emotionally up and down, and he was saying, after the first 2 periods, he's like, this is the kind of game the Flyers have to play. They're playing a solid. It was 2-2. They're playing hard. They're working hard. They're getting chances. They're out shooting the Capitals. And it looked like, this. He's like, this. If they can do this, they'll keep it going. And it was funny. The announcers, Keith Jones and Jim Jackson were like, oh wow, that's some positive stuff there from Al, for a rarity, because Al, Al rips him in the between periods. He has no problem ripping him, which is great. Which the Flyers pay him, and he still rips him. He doesn't care. But he was actually some positive things. And then when the third period comes along and the Flyers take the lead with about 5 minutes to go, 3-2 lead, and then the Capitals score on 3 of their next 4 shots. Right. So the reality of this situation is just insane. Like, and as I'm sitting here watching this thing,
the game were 57 minutes long, the Flyers would have won it.
Yeah. And I texted out to the group, last night. I'm like, first of all, that Samsonov goal, the third goal, we had disagreement.
We're going to disagree with you on this one, Eric.
You got to watch it again.
I watched it. I watched it 3 times. It was not the fault of Samsonov. It was the fault. First of all, Sanheim blows by Backstrom going wide and throws it to the front of the net, and the defenseman who's covering. Yeah.
He does, but the situation is this: from the moment Sanheim gets the puck and is driving down wide, Samsonov is back in his net and not set, and he's never set on the play. He never sets. Like, the idea is when you're taught as goalies, when the other team has the puck and they're at their own blue line, even you need to guard. You need to start getting set for where if they're skating towards you. You need to be set and looking around and recognizing everything that's happening and where guys are and what could develop. Right. He just is so clearly not doing that on this play. Like, he's back in his net. He's along the boards. He's right along the post, and he's also got that thing where you are. If you're defending it, someone's coming down the say your left wing or right wing. The right winger is coming towards you on your left, and if you're a goalie and you're hugging the post, you need to angle yourself like this, right? You need to be angled like this, not like this. Right. Like, if you're up against the post like this, and the guy's coming down this way, you are giving way more than if you just turn like this and cut and block the angle, which enables you to block the angle and block any cross pass that comes across there. There was absolutely no reason that Samsonov.
Okay, but what about the great plays he made in this game where he was pouncing on the puck? He was not giving up rebounds. I'm not telling you that's why they beat the Flyers, but I'm telling you he played a good game.
No, there were moments when he was really good. But this is the issue to me is, like, if you're going to, I'm looking at the Capitals goaltending situation. Like, are any of these guys the ones who can take them to the Stanley Cup? That's what I'm trying when I watch this thing.
All right. If you're going to go with that as the measurement, 3/4 of the league don't have goalies that will do that.
I know. And I'm not.
Carolina Hurricanes don't have a goalie that will do that.
But do they have to look at Marc-Andre Fleury? Do they have to look at alternates?
No, I don't think so. I think if he plays like this, they won't have to. If they know that Vanacek doesn't come back, then they're going to get somebody else. Right. And it's not going to be Fleury. It'll have to be somebody cheaper because they don't have much space.
Corpusalo, somebody like that.
Yeah, Corpusalo or somebody like that. And that's what they're going to run with.
Yeah.
And I know Anthony in the chat room is a Caps fan. I mean, like, Samsonov's our guy. Lavi's making Samsonov our guy. Listen, I think Samsonov is probably the best of the goalies you have. Probably. I mean, I had my differences on that over the years, but I think if he's his healthiest and his top of his game, probably is. But I just don't necessarily see him at, that's the kind of play with 3 minutes or 5 minutes left in the game that you cannot. You're just not focused. You're not focused, and
but whether or not
they won the game. Moving past that. I mean, that's.
I'm just saying his record's 7-3.
Yeah, but then the Caps scored 3 goals in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is, Martin Jones. And then, you look at like Martin Jones and like the first goal that Martin Jones allows to tie the game, he's looking the wrong way. Like, he's trying to pick up the screen by looking the opposite direction of it. So if a guy's at the point and has a left-handed shot, which is what the case is, and you're looking at him, you want to stay on this side because his stick's on that side, his body's on the other side. For some reason, Martin Jones goes this way to get around the screen with a left-handed shot over here. That's just, I don't know, so basic, so ridiculous.
Yeah, that fourth goal, Martin Jones, was awful. But again, here's what I always say, and it's really been true this year. He's going to give up 3 goals every game. This one he gave up 4. You know, when Martin Jones is in there, you pretty much have to score 4 goals to win. That has been, and the fact that they keep trotting him out there, knowing that's you have to change to me as a coach, you kind of have to change the way you're going to play when Martin Jones is in there. You can't go with the team rhetoric that, well, we trust both our goalies and we're like, listen, there's a big difference between Carter Hart and Martin Jones. It's a massive difference.
Oh, it's enormous. It's crazy. It's probably the biggest disparity in the league between backup and starting goalie. Like,
Jones doesn't even get talked about anymore because Flyer fans just like, why bother?
Yeah, and it's crazy that the Flyers don't have anything that they're willing to bring up from the Phantoms to try.
Well, Sandstrom, look, he's had some issues with injury, and they want him to play a full AHL season. So I think, you know what, you kind of have to let him get through this season. Maybe he'll be up towards the end of the season. That's fine. Maybe, they'll try and get Fedotov out of Russia after they win this garbage Olympics. That's fine. Who they won in the shootout today. But, that's what you're looking at right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, for the Flyers, it's only one game. There's still 7 to go on the homestand. I don't know what the pitchforks and torches were, how they were coming out at the end of that game, Russ, last night.
It's coming out. I mean, I'll tell you this. This is how much it's coming out. I mean, when you're talking about losing 17 of 19, forget about the 10 in a row, 11 in a row. This is worse now. I think this is one win since the new year.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 2022.
Well, right. Hold on. So 1 sec, Mike. So watching Yo, and I watch every one of his press conferences, not because I like to, just because I kind of want to see where he's at. And you know what? He is at that point now where he's done as much as a coach could do. And again, we said this with AV, right? But AV also can be on the negative side. I don't think Yo's been on the negative side, but 2 things that haven't been working for the Flyers is nobody is worried about losing minutes on the Flyers. And that's the one thing you could take away from a player that could possibly change the way he plays if you need a spark. There is no threat of that. And practices have been almost like a country club at times, where the other day it was a practice for bottom 6 guys and extras. And again, that's coming into this game. And then, they collapse at the end of the game. So Eck, I am with you. I am like, you know what? You might as well get a jump on the coach market, because I think if they go through the rest of this season and stay just on the same path of playing 350 hockey or less, they're going to turn into the Sabres no matter what the offseason's like, because there does become a point where this becomes systemic.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with Russ last night after the game. I don't think you're going to find a coach in his right mind that will come in at this point unless you throw a boatload of money.
You got to pay him. Yeah, you got to pay him.
But here's
they can pay him. That's the thing.
They can pay him. But the thing is, Vigneault's contract is still in place. I think he's got one more year.
Yeah.
Or was this the last year? Okay. I'm not saying that's going to prevent them from going out and signing a big coach in the offseason. But no coach, Tortorella, Tocchet, Travis Green, Mike Babcock, whoever you want to bring in, is going to come in with this cluster F that's going on right now. I compared this last night. I think it's a valid comparison. But the only difference here is in 2015, when the Leafs fired Randy Carlyle and brought in Peter Horchuk, who was his assistant coach on his staff, the only difference was the Leafs wanted to tank. In this instance, the Flyers don't want to tank, but they really have no choice because
I'm starting to question whether or not they want to tank, Mike. I'm telling you that right now, based on what I'm seeing, and I'm never
questioning it. There's still too many guys there that it doesn't behoove them to tank.
No, I don't think the guys want to tank, but I'm just saying that I think they know that a coach would at least boost them a little bit, not enough to make the playoffs, but at least boost them a little bit. And I wonder about that. That's my question.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point. I will tell you this though. It was all hands on deck in the organization yesterday. Everybody was there. Everybody, even Clark, Holmgren, Barber, scouts, everybody was there. It was overflowing. What do they take away from that game?
That they suck.
That's a good game for everybody to watch, to be honest, because that was pretty much the summary of what we've seen. That was that was the summary of.
And we did see some improvement. Mike Yo's right. There was some improvement because for part of the game, you saw at least a little better brand of hockey, but it isn't going to be enough. So at the end of the day, I think they do have to start course correcting, because if they don't, like Mike says, let's say they even hire a coach quick and hire him in May. that means you've got a month to get ready for, what you're going to do in the summer. You got to try and get on the same page with Fletcher. Tell Fletcher what you like and what you don't like. Meanwhile, a coach could come in now and start telling Fletcher, you see how this is like this? I'm not looking for this. I'm looking for this. And he could do something about it at the deadline rather than having to do something about it 3 months later. I do think there's an advantage to that if you want to try and maintain some competitive edge.
And if you want to mix the coach into the decision-making process in terms of the team.
Exactly.
This management group may not want to do that. It's like
this management group might not be here either. And that's the other thing that's like, I really feel very strongly that this.
No, that's fair too. It's fair.
Well, I mean, there's no, and that's there's never been a management group that has survived this kind of a season in Philadelphia.
Well, there's another comparative to Toronto, because when they brought in Horachek, they at that point Lou wasn't there. I think Nonis was still there. So at the end of the year, after they made trades, after they traded off Cody Franz and after they traded off Mike Santorelli and all these other guys, Nonis was gone. Shanahan was in place. Nonis was gone. Horachek was gone. They cleaned out completely. And in May, they brought in Mike Babcock.
But Nonis got in that Dion Phaneuf contract. Thank God.
There is the possibility that, and and I haven't heard this, but it's speculative, knowing the kind of the players involved, that this is possible. That Fletcher has wanted to bring in a different coach, hasn't been allowed to because they know that he's not going to be the GM in the future. And I think that is
the rest of the hierarchy there. And if they're going to be there, then they could also speak to Fletcher and make sure they're all on the same page. But
if you want to bring a big GM in, you're going to have to, that GM's going to want to bring his own coach in.
Right.
So if you were to hire another coach here, like anybody at all, you would have to pay him. Now, it doesn't matter can they afford him? Yes. But the reality is, why, if it makes me feel like Fletcher is gone in some ways.
Well, we see, all right, here's where I'm going to have to differ with you. Not because I think it's the right move. Fletcher's going to be the guy at the trading deadline. There is no point in having him at the trading deadline and then firing him 2 months later.
Oh, I know.
He is the one that is going to be the most important guy now, laying down your foundation for the next 3 years, going forward with what they get in return here. If you let him do that and then leave, that's even worse.
Ideally, you're right. But again, I keep going back to this example because there are a lot of parallels. Dave Nonis was the guy who made the trades.
I know.
Now, it was like with Shanahan's supervision.
That's true. It was, yeah.
But Nonis was the one. And then
I wonder if Briere has a big play in this in the future. Like, I'm curious about that. I don't know. Like,
it's not a big play right now.
It's not a big play now, but they bring him in, and he's like, he could be a bridge to something. I just wonder.
Sure, that's going to still take like 2 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't have him as a GM for another 2 years, but I think that there's something else going on, I want to really see how they.
Well, there's something else going on, or nothing else going on, and
if nothing else is going on, then I really want to see how they survive these next 7 games, because it's a disaster, and that building,
it's already a disaster. Like
it's already a disaster, but I just think that there's no real. This is as low as it's been, and maybe they are tanking, but I don't know. And the players aren't tanking. I'm not saying the players.
No, and Yo's definitely not trying to.
Players never tank, but what the players never tank, but teams put them in positions to lose.
Sure, no, and we, it's funny. I've seen it a million times, and the Sabres were as overt as the Leafs were about it. This is not like that. The situation is not like that.
Well, I was going to say maybe this is the only type of tank that the Flyers can get away with, because their fan base wouldn't accept a tank, except this is sort of like a double secret tank. This is like,
Sabres and Leafs teams that tanked had nowhere close to the talent that this Flyers team.
Right, but the core of this team is out. Ellis, Couturier, Hayes.
No, they are. I know, and
we're not going to see Ellis back this season. We're not.
I don't think. I wonder if we're ever going to see him back. To be honest, I'm throwing that out.
Well, I mean that we'll have that discussion another day, but we're not going to see him back this season. Kevin Hayes, apparently, we're going to, and I don't know why, but we're going to.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest justification they have to pull that justification. They have to justify that somehow.
Right, but if you were tanking, you wouldn't bring Kevin Hayes back. You would.
Yeah, I mean,
at the end of the year. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's true. Maybe we haven't seen him back yet, so we'll see.
No, but they're talking like
we're talking about it for sure. I wanted the other game I watched a little bit of last night was the Toronto game versus the Penguins.
Yep.
And I have to say, this is one of the more impressive games I've seen the Maple Leafs play in a while. Like I felt like this Maple Leafs team has turned a big time corner. I feel like this is
well, I mean, okay.
I know you hate positivity, Mike, but I'm throwing it out.
No. But I'll just say this: it's like they got a great performance out of Jack Campbell, but it wasn't a fantastic game in the sense that they gave up 46 shots.
No, I know, but that's the Penguins. The Penguins are going to take
the shots. Yeah.
But the reality is that Campbell is such a difference maker right now for them.
Right. Well, see, honestly, I was just writing this for today's column. This was probably the best performance that Jack Campbell has had.
Yeah.
In 2 months. Since before December the 1st, because I did a statistical breakdown that his goals against was under 2 and his save percentage was like .940 before December 1st, and then from December 1st to just recently, his save percentage was under .900 and his goals against was over 3. He has not played well, and now last night he played very well. They got a goal 20 seconds into the first period with Matthews. They got a nice power play goal with Morgan Riley doing an end-to-end rush that put him up 2-0, and then a shorthanded goal. And then basically it was over with, and they gave up 19 shots to Pittsburgh in the third period. It was a good game, don't get me wrong, but even Sheldon Keefe found some fault in how they performed. I just say this, Zach. I mean, they're playing well. They're, I think, 32, 12, and 3 right now. That is absolutely meaningless when it comes to who they face in the first round and who they will be the underdog against Florida and against Tampa. You got 3 teams in the top 5 in one division, and I've been crying for years about a change in the playoff structure to go back to a conference format. And what's going to happen more than likely is you're going to have 2 of the 5 best teams in the league lose in the first 2 rounds, and because of this stupid playoff setup. And I'm not saying,
and we should talk about that for a minute, because when Mike and I were kind of talking about it offline, if they didn't just sign a new TV deal and have 2 new partners with that, I think they may have gone back and changed things. But they now have 2 new partners who have spent unprecedented money for the NHL. They want these first round matchups. They don't really care about the competitive balance.
I think that you're right about that. And I also think that all the research they do just tells them that people like this. And I don't know why. I mean, as a writer, I don't like it either. As a writer, you kind of want the purest thing you can get. Like, you want 1 play 16. You would like 1 play. Obviously, none of that's feasible, but you would like that to be the case.
Right.
So if you had 1 play 8 in each conference, that would be better than this.
Yes.
But I think that you do get 1 plays 8, you get 2 plays 7, you get those 2, but then after that you get the
games in the middle are the tough ones,
right? You don't necessarily get 2 plays 7. I guess you should say you get 1 plays 8 for sure, but the games in the middle. I mean, that finishing second and third in a division, that's a really good division.
It's bad.
Like especially in this division for Toronto, there's 3 teams in there, and 2 of them are all 3 of those teams are maybe.
Yeah, they're top.
That might be 3 of the top 5 teams in the league.
Yeah,
that you're looking at there, and that's like definitely 3 of the top 8.
The easiest matchup for one of those 3 teams will be the conference final, because if say for example Toronto plays Florida, okay, that'll be an extremely tough series. Then Toronto wins. Then their prize is they play the 2-time Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah. Okay, they get by that one, and then they play the Penguins or the Rangers. That probably will be it won't be an easy series, but it'll be the easiest of the 3.
That's right. How, what? Honestly, that's how it was for the Rangers in '94.
Right.
Until they met the Devils, like that was the way it was going for them. And that is, they actually, in the back in the day when you were a fan and I was a fan, you had to look at the schedule and say, hope for the easiest matchups so that you could get past the one tough matchup. And now it's the opposite.
Yeah, it is. It is very much the opposite. It is. And it does make for an interesting race for first, because in that division, you really do have a big advantage by finishing first in that division. So I think that's why you're going to see it. And tonight, it's going to be a really good game between the Panthers and the Minnesota Wild tonight.
Yeah, that's a good game. I'm watching that.
That's like a very interesting game between two teams who are both run by the Billies, Billy Guerin and Billy Zito. And they are absolutely both built in kind of similar ways, and it's going to be fun to see how they're two really good friends.
I like them both. I like Bill Guerin's love of popcorn, though. It's unabashed.
Yeah, no, they're both good friends. They both talk to each other a lot, so it's going to be an interesting battle. I'm sure there's side bets going on between Guerin and Zito tonight, but I think that you're going to see that game is going to be something to watch. I think that it doesn't matter with Toronto until the playoffs. You can say, Mike, which is true. Of course, it's true. But at the end of the day, this is the best goaltending you've had.
Yeah, this is way better than Freddie Anderson.
Well,
but, even Freddie Anderson, who played well in the regular season, didn't play this well in the regular season.
at times he did.
At times he did, but not at the right time.
Well, I mean, but like I just illustrated, I mean, Campbell's been up and down. He had 2 months of really good play, then he had almost 2 months of average play, and now
we could say this is the most games he's ever played, too.
Yes, yeah, and that's a consideration, and I have to say, even though I'm not a big fan of the signing or big fan of him as a goaltender, this is probably the best backup goaltending that they've had with Mrazek since Curtis McElhinney. But Curtis McElhinney played 13 games or something like that, and Mrazek's probably going to play close to 30. So
Mrazek's better than McElhinney. I mean, this is the best backup goal you've had too. I mean, they set themselves up for a situation here that Campbell, if he goes down, Mrazek can steal games for you. They're not in a dangerous in as dangerous spot as they were.
No, it's not precarious like that.
The other game I watched last night, then finishing up the games, and then a rumor for you guys. The other game I watched last night was Edmonton Anaheim, and
of course,
this Edmonton Oilers team now 4-0 with their new coach.
Okay, can
Jack Adams guy? He's going to be a Jack Adams guy.
This is called the Woodcroft bounce.
Of course it is. And that's, but bounces are sometimes what you need to get off the floor, like it's like how about that metaphor?
Although the Boudreaux bounce has leveled out big time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it has. And this bounce might level out too, or it might not. Like there's a combination of him. There's like Evander Kane fitting in really well. And
by the way, I had somebody who said he will never listen to me on the Buzzcast or on the other podcast that I do because I was so against Evander Kane signing with Toronto. I wasn't against Evander Kane signing with Toronto. I says, look at it with open eyes. He's a cancer. He's been a cancer everywhere he went in the NHL.
Like we were negotiating to get that guy back to listen to the show. You just ruined it again.
Edmonton sold their soul to the devil to get this guy to come in to salvage this season because they were on their way to missing the playoffs.
You're assuming the devil exists, but go ahead.
Okay. The devil exists, and it might be trading Pavel Zacha. Pavel Zacha, yeah. Here's my transition for you.
Segue.
Yeah, so the latest rumor I heard, and this has got a lot of heat behind it, and from very good sources, is that the Devils are closing in on Besser out of Vancouver. And I do think there's a lot to this. And Zach will be part of the deal.
They have money that they can pay him with. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, okay, this is the thing. I mean, because I've heard the Besser talk. And it seems to be tied with the JT Miller talk because I saw reporting over the last couple of days that the Canucks don't want to trade JT Miller, that, he's too much of a part of what they want to continue going forward. And Besser, remember, he's an RFA this year with ARB rights. He's 1 year away from being a UFA. There's no guarantee that they can sign him. Yeah. And if they do sign him, it's probably going to be like $7.5, $8 million, like a Kyle Connor type of deal. And they probably can't afford that. So
I'm going to tell you the risk here, though, for the Devils.
Yeah.
The risk here is Besser is from the West Coast, and I could see him gravitating towards the Kings. And if they still have money, why wouldn't they want Brock Besser who could score goals?
Well, the risk for the Devils or any other team trying to trade for Besser is he does the same thing he's going to do with Vancouver and say, okay, I'll take my qualifying offer and then sayonara, bye-bye. Yep. I mean, you have to – I don't know who his agent is, but you have to talk to his agent before you're making the deal and say, okay, we want to sign you to an extension. And if we can't get you on an extension after the trade, then forget it. And that that has to be the mentality of Vancouver right now, or the team trading for Besser potentially.
Yeah,
actually, Besser's from Minnesota, but for some reason he told me he likes the West Coast. So
he does like playing out there. He does like being a Canuck. I mean, I've talked about it before too.
Well, if he likes being a Canuck, then you take less, or then you take less than what you would get as a free agent. But if
it depends how much less, and it depends if they. I mean, they're gonna have to choose which way to go. In Vancouver, they have like 4 players. They've got to they really can only keep 3 of them. And honestly,
I still think it's a mistake to lose Besser because it's hard to find goal scorers in this league.
I agree. I mean, Besser's the one guy I would not lose, but he seems to be one of the harder guys that they feel like they're going to have to resign. And
his agent is Ben Hawkinson.
Yeah, I mean, Ben's fine. He's not hard to deal with.
Yeah, it's not hard to deal with. And if Besser wants to stay there, you would think they'll be able to figure it out, right? But this rumor is very big, so that makes me curious whether or not that is the case. Because
there's been a lot of talk tying Zacha to Vancouver.
Yeah,
right.
And the thing is, he is in the same boat as Besser. He's 1 year away from being a UFA, so it might be trading headache for headache.
No, but you could re-sign him much cheaper.
Right.
Remember, Rutherford knows Rutherford has certain kinds of guys he likes, and Pavel Zacha is right in that wheelhouse. Like he is.
Yeah.
Pavel Zacha is definitely a Rutherford type player. There's no two ways about it. He's the kind of guy that he brought into Pittsburgh too, and like that helped the Penguins get over not the superstar, but like the just below that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second line player that he loves, that's his guy, like Getzel type.
Well, I mean, okay, Zacha, his best year was last year when he scored 35 points in 50 games.
He's going to beat that this year, though.
Yeah, he's got 23 points in 47 games. So he's probably going to score in the neighborhood of 45 points.
So let's talk about that 40 points, right, Mike? Because on Twitter, there's a very big misconception, Ek. If you pick up a player in a trade and if I say online that, hey, I think he's a 40-point guy, 45-point guy, fans are like, well, we want a 60-point guy. And so that means that's William Nylander. There's not a lot of 60-point guys in this league. When you trade like a Claude Giroux, you're not getting a 61-point guy in return.
Yeah,
right.
It could happen, but it's the chances of it are remote.
Especially if the contract is where it's at,
Well, we talked about this with Kevin yesterday, and it's like the realism of what Philadelphia can get for Giroux. And it's like, okay, the first complicating factor is the contract. But so, if they retain 50%, then he's a little over $4 million. So you might a team like, unless it's a Colorado or a Rangers who've got significant cap space, they're going to have to wash that contract through a third team, and that's going to cost more. That cost doesn't come from Philadelphia. That cost comes from the team that's interested in trading for him. So that means that Philadelphia gets less in that instance. So, and clearly from what everything is that's being said by the Flyers, they don't want a first-round pick in this deal. They want assets that are closer to being ready to come into the NHL. So if that's the case, you're talking about an organization's, somebody who's in the top 2 or 3 prospects in that organization, and they're just not going to get that for, even though he's still a really good player. They
will get a first if it's the right.
I don't think they want a first.
No, I still think they do because again, they may have to dish off a first to get rid of like JVR.
Okay,
so I do think they want a first, but and at that, Arizona in the house, that's what I thought they were doing, is probably watching JVR, seeing if they even want him for a year and to take his contract on. But
what's funny is JVR and Gostisbehere were close. So I'm curious about that. When Gostisbehere is definitely one of the guys who's doing the best for them. They're obviously going to talk to him if they're in that situation. They're going to say, we're talking to Philly about JVR. What do you think? I would think Gostisbehere would be pushing for that.
Yeah, I would think so. But
and his buddy Phil Kessel's there right now, but I don't think he'll be there past March 21st.
I mean, I did put an article up on Sportsology. If I were going with Colorado, honestly, Martin Kaut is my best choice for forward because he's a no-nonsense, really good shooting, tough guy who plays an all-around game and isn't stuck on himself. He just plays hard hockey, and I think he can be like that 35, 40-point guy. And then
is he like another Farabee, essentially?
No. He's not as high as skill as Farabee, but he has a great wrist shot. He's more tougher. He's more of a nuts and bolts guy than Farabee has. He's got more finesse.
Konechny, are we there? I guess it's between Konechny and Farabee, like the Konechny or Farabee factor.
No, those guys are a different kind of finesse kind of level. He gets goals tougher in tougher ways. But I do like Drew Hellison from the standpoint that, if he were coming out of college, he's probably the guy that gets there quickest, but it's not the guy I like the best. I like Sean Barron's the best because Sean Barron's can run a power play. He's dynamic offensively, but he is probably another 2 years in college, another year in the A, and I don't know if the Flyers would wait for that, and I don't know if they'd offer that. So I don't think he's going to be on the table. So I do think Hellison's a good choice because he's smart. He skates well. I mean, in that last game in the Olympics, they played him for 5 minutes. Like, why even have a defenseman on the team if you're playing him for 5 minutes? But anyhow, he's better than that. He's not a high offensive guy, but he gets points in games like by making good passes, getting secondary assists, things like that. That's how he gets his points.
He's got size. He does
have size.
He's right-handed.
Yeah, and so does Kaut. Kaut has a little size to him too. Even though he's listed at 190, he's stronger than that. He's one of those guys. So those are guys I like. People want like Justin Barron from Colorado. My issue with Barron is decision making. Yes, it's great to have a guy who could bring the puck up the ice and look great doing it and get points on the power play. But when you're in a tight game and Barron's bringing the puck up the ice, you don't want him to make a bad decision. You don't want him to turn it over, and he is prone to doing that. And so I don't know if that's ever going to be out of his game. And based on that, I already think the Flyers have enough of that. Sanheim kind of straddles that every once in a while. Do you really want another guy that is sort of like that? And so I don't think you do. And the other guy who I would really want, but I don't know if he'd actually be available, would be Jean-Luc Foudy, who is a center. He's 19 years old in the AHL. He is fast.
Yeah.
He has a great shot. It's Liam's brother, but I think he's better than Liam.
Okay.
And he's definitely faster, and he's a good playmaker. And he's 19 in the AHL producing. Will they give that up? I don't know. But if they give that up, I would take Foudy even over Kaut under the right circumstances, depending on what the second piece is. You're not going to get a first out of Colorado, but maybe you can get the 2023 first, and maybe you have to throw in like a third or something. And that's fine. If that's what you have to do to get the first and get two players that you could put in your lineup, that's fine with me.
Well, it would be a 2023 first.
I said 23, yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. I still think that's the most likely thing, just because, like what Kevin said, he believes Claude Giroux wants to go to Colorado, and I think the Flyers are going to do as much as they can to give him what he wants.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it doesn't always work out.
Well, he's got a no move, so he's got final approval.
He does, but he might look. I don't think he's going to be a jerk about it either. No. I think if he sees that it's Colorado, and let's say it's just St. Louis, right? Even though I think St. Louis is a little more remote than some others, he probably would go to both places. He likes Berube. Yeah. I think he would. I think in that regard, he might act in the best interest of the Flyers and say, "Hey, both are Cup contenders. Get the best deal you can." I think he might do that. Actually,
do you perceive that there is any hesitancy upon the Flyers of trading him in the East? Because we've heard now the last few days, like Elliot Friedman's been reporting Florida, and it's like, I mean, if I'm the Flyers, I'm trading him to whoever offers me the best.
I don't think there's any hesitancy about where to trade him. Yeah, I don't think there's any hesitancy, but I don't think Florida's after him at all. I don't understand.
No, but what I'm saying is,
I think like if the Penguins
may not be after him today, but he does play it low key, and it wouldn't shock me if they make an offer.
Yeah, if the New York Rangers were the team that was offering,
they would trade him to the Rangers.
They won't, or they would.
They would. They would. I think they would.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50. I'm not sure they would, and the Rangers could give him a hell of a package, but I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, I think that they're at the point where they realize that he's a UFA next year anyway. They're going to lose it.
Now,
I mean, the Rangers, look, I'll tell you the one conduit, it's Steve Eminger. He's a scout for the Rangers. He played for the Flyers. So, you might get some good cross-contamination there and get a chance.
I think they think he's going to sign for the Penguins next year anyway. I really do. Talking to them, I really think that's where they think he's going to sign. So it's really, you're keeping him out of the division for a couple months, whatever. It's really kind of pointless.
Well, I mean, Brian Burke was on Sportsnet last night in between periods and was talking about, Malkin and Letang and what they're going to do at the deadline. And of course, we know what Brian Burke, like most general managers, does. He says nothing. He says something, but he says it like it's nothing. Right. And if he can get Letang and he can get Malkin to sign for less to finish out their careers in Pittsburgh, then they have some flexibility. But he doesn't know what he's going to do because he doesn't know what he's going to have on hand in the summer. And he would like to add, but he doesn't know. He doesn't want to subtract players that are helpful to the team. That means like they're not going to trade Brian Rust, even though he's a UFA, because Brian Rust is an important part of the team. Right. So so Pittsburgh is sort of locked in, and they might have room or they might not have room.
It'll be interesting if it comes down to Rust or Malkin.
What if it comes down to Malkin or Giroux? I think they go with Malkin.
I think
they're going to go with Malkin over Giroux.
Yeah, no, they will. But if it comes down to Rust, if it comes down internally, if it comes down to Rust versus Malkin, I think they would maybe go with Rust.
I don't think it's going to come down to Rust versus Malkin. I think it's going to come down to Rust versus Letang. I think Malkin's going to be there regardless.
I think Letang is actually the one who's going to be there regardless. I think Letang is just.
I'm going to tell you, I think it's 50-50. I think it's 50-50 with Letang because not because of his play, but because of his rate of pay.
Well, here's where Burke and Hextall could work some magic. Is you could trade a Jason Zucker. You could clear $5.5 million off of your cap by making that kind of move, or trading Kasperi Kapanen, or there are players on that team making significant money that are contributors, but not great contributors. Yeah. If you want to keep a Letang or you want to bring in a Giroux, those are the moves that you have to make.
Just like you can make them, yeah.
Right, just like Philadelphia has to clear JVR's contract if they want to go out and sign players. Now, I'll tell you, this is what I think is going to be the most interesting aspect of the next a little over 4 weeks. Everybody, Florida, Colorado, the Rangers, the Leafs, all the contenders supposedly are in on Ben Sherratt. Now, only one team's going to get them. Only one team's going to get that player. And after that,
sure, Mike?
Yeah, well, unless he can clone himself. It was this multiplicity.
Brady's cloned himself. So.
Yeah, but what my point being here is that, okay, one team gets them, so they're out of the market. But where do the rest of these teams, the 7 or 8 teams, go for that plan B? And, that's where guys like Justin.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Yeah, Justin Braun. Who's really getting pushed a lot around is Jeff Petrie.
Well,
he's going to be the last to go with that contract.
That's a dream scenario.
No, I know, but Montreal is really, really, really pushing him on teams. I heard.
Of course they are, because they want to get out from under.
Yeah, and he's been actually awful this year.
Yeah,
from what I've heard from everybody, all the scouts I've talked to, he's just I haven't watched enough Montreal to know, but he's been absolutely terrible.
The guy who hasn't been terrible is Cole Caulfield.
Yeah, that's true. No, I agree. And with the Ducks fading Manson and Lindholm, they brought up in the chat room. Funky brought up in the chat room. I do think Manson could really be moved.
Well, if Manson, I think. I don't know how interested Toronto is in Sherratt, but I do know that they've long been interested in Manson, and if there's one defenseman that they would probably give up a first-round pick to get, it is Manson. The thing is that the impression that's out there right now is that Manson is somebody who, if he gets traded, he may just simply go right back to Anaheim because he doesn't really want to go anywhere.
Yeah,
but. And that he'd take a little less to return to the Ducks, probably in exchange for a no move clause. But I know Jake in the chat saying they're in on Sherratt. Yeah, the cost for Sherratt with all these teams bidding on him is going to be obscene. Yeah. And I think he's a good defenseman, but I don't think he's going to be worth a 1 and a 3, and that's supposedly the cost.
What did David Savard get?
He got $3.5 million for 4 years.
Asset wise.
Oh, a 1 and a 3.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, something like that. I agree. I think Savard's better than Sherratt too. But
we all do. But again, like Mike said, it's based on what's available.
Based on what's available.
If Montreal wants to get out from under Savard's contract with 3 years left, I think they could get close.
I think they could try. I think they could try to do that
They'll
because
try that. You might have a better chance of that than
if I'm a team like Toronto, that's a guy I'd love to get. Like,
Yeah, $3.5 million for 3 more years.
yeah, he would be phenomenal. He would really put the Leafs over the top.
That's a move that if they give up a first round pick, at least they have security long term on the second pairing.
Yeah, but Gordon's not just taking that; he wants more than that.
Okay, so for those of you out there who never say that I ever call a trade or predicts what's going to happen properly, I just want to tell you that I got this one right years ago. I've been calling this for like probably 10 years.
Oh, I know. E5, LeCavier to the Habs.
Exactly. I knew this was coming. I knew this was happening. I've been calling it for a while. And I just wait. I sit back and I quietly wait while people say I'm wrong.
You didn't know he was going to be traded to the Habs managerial staff.
Yes, but he's now. I didn't give any.
Now he doesn't have to play in front of the fans. He could just work for them.
Exactly, because apparently he didn't want to play in front of them at times. But there was also a trade that I know for a fact was nixed by the NHL that had LeCavier going to Montreal. But that's back in the old days when you couldn't make those kind of trades, but now you can.
Oh, you're talking about when Tampa thought LeCavier was a bust.
Yeah, Tampa worked out a deal to Montreal during the Montreal draft. When the draft was in Montreal, they worked it out. And
around the same time, I was told this by Bill Waters, a former assistant GM of the Leafs, that the Leafs had a deal. I think it was before Tampa won the Cup, so this is probably
prior to that. Yeah,
the Leafs had a deal with Tampa for LeCavier involving Nick Antropov and Thomas Caberlet, and Dudley was the GM there. Mm-hmm. And he went to ownership, and the assistant GM at that point was Jay Feaster, and Jay Feaster backstabbed him and went to ownership and undercut him, and
eventually got the job.
But he undercut him by saying we can't trade LeCavier, and they nixed the deal, and then eventually Dudley got fired and Feaster got the job.
Where is Jay Feaster now?
I don't know.
He's working for a team.
Yeah, where is he?
I did hear him work his name not too long ago, like maybe a year ago. But just but yeah, thanks about that, Foley. Appreciate it. No, but honestly, the reality is Brian Lawton did make the trade for when he was the GM of Tampa.
He's actually vice president of hockey development for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
There you go. I know he's back at Tampa.
Nothing close to being a GM though.
No, I love some of these titles. They really are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm executive producer of Defenseman's Feelings. Anyway, so I don't know. I just think there are so many titles.
The real Jay Feaster. So
they always find titles, for these guys. It's like incredible to me. Like they come up with titles.
Actually, I have more followers than Jay Feaster. I feel good about that.
Well, Funky is off, because I'm well aware of this situation. Funky is off in terms of the team. It wasn't the Wings that Sundin wouldn't waive his no trade clause to. It was the Habs.
Right.
Would not waive it to go to Montreal, and then eventually,
Mike was hoping he would.
Well, yeah, because at that point, the reported return was Grabowski, who was a Montreal prospect, and one of either McDonough or Pacioretty.
Yeah, if you'd have gotten McDonough, that would have been a game changer.
And if he nixed it, and then of course he went free agent Vancouver, which is why if there was a poster of Matt Sundin in front of me, I'd spit on it.
I'll tell you one of the most puzzling things in the history of front office management in hockey was how badly Montreal was trying to get rid of Ryan McDonough. It was unbelievable.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's why they ended up getting him for almost nothing. Really,
for Gomez.
They got him for Gomez, who the Rangers were dying to get rid of too.
Couldn't wait.
Yeah, the Rangers. I remember the Scotty Gomez thing that always stuck to me was, and he's
a great guy. Look, I don't hold any. I like.
No, he is, but he had an ego. Okay, like that's like.
No, there's no question he had an ego.
I mean, all guys do, but I remember the end of the Rangers situation with Gomez, and this was told to me by a player who was on the bench for the Rangers, who said to me that Gomez skated over at one point during a game to the bench and said, "This effing team, I don't know why I'm playing in this effing city. I don't want anything to do with you guys anymore. I'm so tired of this." And he just sat on the bench. It's like not the kind of thing you can say in Madison Square Garden on the Rangers bench and expect to be there for very long.
I don't know if this story is apocryphal, but if you remember that they were signed the same summer, Gomez and Chris Drury, And reportedly, the Rangers had the same offer on the table for both of them because it was the same contract. It was 7 years, $49 million. And they essentially, their representatives called at the same time and said, we'll take the deal. And the Rangers only wanted to sign one of them, and they ended up signing both of them.
I don't know if that's entirely true, but it could be.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Sather at that point? Okay, then it's true.
Yeah, I do know that that's partially true. That I think when they were negotiating with both, this is what I know. I know a little bit of the side because I know somebody else who's involved in a different way in that deal. That I could never say. But when the two were negotiating with the Rangers, Gomez and Drury, they were under the impression that it was going to be one or the other. Okay, they definitely had the feel. The Rangers were basically saying, "We're going to take only one of you guys," and that they definitely felt. So they were both very surprised. And I think, from what I understand, Gomez was signed slightly before Drury, and so Drury started talking to other teams because he thought, okay, well, Gomez is signed, I'm done, because that's how much he thought it was going to be the case. That was only going to be one. So they may, I think, at some point they either use that as a negotiating tactic to try to get them both to stay down and because they both wanted to come to New York, or they used it as or they just changed their mind and said we want both of them.
Okay, here's the incredible bouncing ball of the 2021-22 season. So Thomas Boyle, just I'm telling the story right now. So the Leafs at the beginning of the year chose to waive Adam Brooks, who's a fourth line center guy, good depth forward. They developed in the organization. They're trying to sneak him down to the minors. It was a question of whether they could or not. Montreal claims him. He plays about a month in Montreal. The Leafs were clearly interested in reclaiming him. Mm-hmm. Vegas, because they had so many injuries early in the year, stepped in front of them and claimed him. He played about a month and a half in Vegas. Right. And then was injured and then was coming back, and they tried to get him through try to get him back down to the AHL to Henderson. The Leafs reclaim him on, I think it was Tuesday. And they're so tight against the cap. Their whole point was they wanted to get him down to the Marlies again. So they put him on waivers 24 hours later. And now he's claimed for the fourth time in a year. Winnipeg claims him, and he's from Winnipeg. So that's not a guarantee that they're going to keep him up on the NHL roster. But this guy's frequent flyer miles are unbelievable.
Yeah.
The only thing that's good is that he's from Winnipeg, so he can probably stay at home with mom and dad and not have to find a
I wonder if he even came to Toronto.
No, probably not. But it's just
he might have known that this was possible too. Like when the Leafs claimed him, they said you might want to stay there because we're going to try to put you through waivers. You could get called up.
Probably they they've had him in the system since he was 19 years old.
Yeah, they know he was probably going to get. That's crazy. That is crazy. All right, I guess that's all the time we have for today, folks. It's another great week here at Hockey Buzz. Remember to tell your friends about the podcast. Try to follow us. Please follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube. And you can follow Mike at Buffalo.
Make sure to stay ahead of Jake Feaster and followers, please.
You can follow at Sportsology if you want to follow us. I'm at Eklund. And that's it for today. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will be back on Monday. Enjoy.